Hello friends, welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about that wonderful Saga miniatures game universe. I'm your host Rodge. Today I've got an interesting battle report. I'm playing my last Romans against a chap named Jeremy, who is playing some Norse-Gaels, so that'll be an interesting battle. And then actually we're going to have a little bit of a Thursday channel update afterwards, so stick around for that. But let's jump into this battle report here. So we've got our opening shot here, some cinematics of the Roman general staring down some Norse-Gaels here. Let's get a shot at that battlefield. So I'm actually the first player, and I set up this large forest here and this large rocky, well, not large, small rocky structure that have these levy hunkered down in. So I've actually been playing quite a few games against cavalry-based armies, so my battle plan with those has been hunkering in the woods, and I guess by default that became my battle plan for this game here. So let's see how that turned out. But let's go over my troops and deployment here. So in this is option C, I believe, for the Clash of Warlords. So every unit has to be more than 6 inches away from every other unit. So starting on my left-hand side, I've got 4 warriors with bows. In the back, I've got, I think it's 9 warriors with bows. In the middle here, I've got 6 levy with javelins. Going down, hunkering the line back here, I've got 11 warriors, just with your spears and shields, your run-of-the-mill guys. Got my warlord. I've got a unit of 8 Hearth Guard in this big clearing here with room to run and hunker down. In this rocky ground, we have some 6 levy with javelins. So up top here, okay, so there's a couple of mistakes that were made in this game. So the first one is, Jeremy is using just regular warriors, and the Norse-Gaels only have the options for javelin warriors or Dane-axe warriors. So in the middle here, he has some Dane-axe warriors, but these 2 frontline units of 8 warriors should have been armed with javelins. And going through the battle report, I probably would have killed a couple more guys, but then, he would have had some javelins, and he was attacking quite a bit with one of these units, so it probably evened out towards the end, but it could have made a difference. I think our battle plans would have been probably quite different, but yeah, so just heads up with that. Didn't make too big of a difference, but so he's got 3 warriors up front, and then 2 units of 6 Hearth Guard backed with the warlord there, and he is just equipped with normal shield. He doesn't have a Dane axe, and these warriors in the middle do have Dane axes, so those guys are modeled correctly. So Clash of Warlords just going out for the kill here. So as I mentioned, I'm going first. No rares, so I just pop down Frenzy, which is a good defensive ability. I've got Protect up. I like to put that on the board early on and just leave it there until some pivotal point later in the game. And then I've got Outflank, which is a great ability on the bottom there. That'll let me activate a unit kind of for like a second maneuver almost, that doesn't generate a fatigue. So, okay, so here's our battlefield once again. Let's see where my troops get up to. So we've got my levy here doing a maneuver. Got my warriors moving up with a maneuver. Got my archers moving up here, the 4-pack for a maneuver. And I got the levy maneuvering up here. So there's a theme here using that free activation. Maneuvering up the archer. So I'm approaching. I'm willing to commit here. And my warlord, he kind of moves over. Not super eager to engage quite yet without the bulk of our forces. And I do use the Warlord's Determination to do a second activation on my levy here. So I move them up into the forest, obviously not in range for any shots, but now I'm within range and I'm kind of blocking some maneuvers on his end, and his units in the back there, the Hearth Guard and his Warlord, might not be able to get as close as they want because they're going to be within 12 inches of this levy unit here. Couple things. I do take a fatigue for that being a second activation. And then one thing was I really wasn't paying too much attention, but my my levy are within 4 inches of the edge of the forest, so he could potentially move up and then charge on his turn without too much trouble there. So should have paid attention to that. I guess the cav armies, I'm just used to them not coming in, but we'll see how that works out. And then over here, I've got my Hearthguard moving up, ready to pounce on any units that are going to go across the field. And I use that outflank ability on my archers here to get them closer to the fray, and it doesn't generate a fatigue, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, not too exciting of a first turn here, but let's get in it with the Norse-Gaels. So we can see I've got Frenzy up as a defensive ability, and I've got Protect as well. Okay, so looking at the Norse-Gaels here, this you might be able to tell where the second error came into play here, and that is the Norse-Gael board is kind of a different beast here. But up top here, we have their combat bonus ability here, and it's different. A lot of their abilities are keyed off these combat pool dice. The more dice, the better. But there is one thing here that says only Saga abilities can place dice here. So unlike every other board, you can't put dice into the combat bonus. You have to use the abilities below, which 4 or 5 abilities will generate to that combat pool. And because of that, I didn't even notice this until I was doing my battle report here. One thing was I didn't have the other guy's board. I just grabbed a bag and headed out to the local hobby shop here, so I wasn't quite as prepared as I should have been. Kind of took his word for some things with the warriors and then this thing right here. So it could have made a difference, at least in one early combat, but that's something to keep in mind. So as we get into it, the Norse-Gael board here, you have to use the abilities of the board. So an example here would be the Clenched Fists, which is a melee ability that gives you 3 combat pool dice. You've got Spill Blood for every soldier that dies. Every casualty, you can roll a dice and place in your combat pool. We've got Dance of Death. You can take up to 3 fatigue on different units and place that many dice in your combat pool. So those kind of gives you the flavor of how you do get dice into that combat pool. And then that's important because you combine it with this Norse ability down here, which is absolutely brutal, which when the Norse melee ability is triggered, and I'm just going over this now because this is basically the key to the battle plan, probably with the Norse-Gaels overall. They do have some other combat abilities, but in this game, this is all that Jeremy was using, really. So when you pop the Norse melee ability, it changes your combat bonus to, instead of adding attack dice or defense dice, to adding automatic hits or increasing your armor by 1. And then if you use a rare dice in your combat bonus, it does both. So yeah, really great ability there. I laughed when I read it on his board, and he's like, oh yeah, you must have read Norse. So yeah, very cool ability, kind of very key for this faction. So we will see how we get in with these guys here. So we can see his maneuvers aren't getting him much action. So he does move up his Hearthguard as close as he can. And then, yeah, kind of well blocked there. Not too shabby. He does move his warriors up, and then he decides not to engage. He moves his other warrior unit over, kind of down the flank of this forest here, but chooses not to engage my levy. And so this is his board as it looks going into my turn. Pretty decent orders phase here with the dice left over. I'm able to max out, and I do get Strategos off, which is pretty cool. And let's see what kind of shenanigans I get up to here. Use indirect fire to throw some shots at his warriors with the Dane axes there. So indirect fire is a cool ability. You can shoot through units in terrain, basically. And I do manage to take out a warrior. I move my levy away from the edge of the forest. So I do move over short away, but levies or javelins can throw a medium. So I throw some javelins and don't do anything else. My warriors, my 4-pack here, decides against proceeding into the forest in face of his 8 warrior pack coming there. So I fall back on this side of the battlefield. My warriors move up in the center. And I'm taking advantage of some maneuvering to do a side move with my levy, bring up my Hearthguard as close as they can. And, went backwards there. I moved my Warlord over, so I'm going to be within charge range of something with him, hopefully. So if Jeremy decides to hang back, I will have the option to get my Warlord in the fray. I'm kind of... I have a crap load of abilities loaded up on my board. I'm going to get Strategos, Frenzies out there. So I'm confident that if he does launch an attack against my Warlord, I'll be able to withstand it. And so I'm just trying to lure their fight over towards the middle of the battlefield here, away from the forest, because I kind of see my mistake here of going into the forest. Basically, infantry can go in and just clear it out. So having my shooters in the forest doesn't particularly help, because once he's in there, then my shooters are weaker against him because he'll claim cover. And so my plan is to kind of get the fight away from the forest. So we'll see how that works. Okay, so, yep, I got Frenzy, Superior Tactics, Strategos lined up, and yeah, this is what the battlefield looks like. Got some nice shots here of the battle line. Ooh, it's a good pick. Liking these guys. Let's see if we can maintain this glory. So, okay, so Jeremy, he left some dice on his board, so basically he's maxed out here, and he's given himself a slew of warrior activations. So his front line is going to be getting some action in, and he brings his warlord up. I think he does some determination on the warriors. He has to do a double move to get into my levy. And so he does take a fatigue, and we get into a bit of a fight here. I pop Frenzy, and I think I use Superior Tactics as well. One thing was I did pop Strategos at the start of my turn, but for some reason I did not use it in this combat, and there actually weren't any other combat, so that was a mistake on my part because I really needed it the following turn. So if I just would have left that there, I would have been fine, but... these early games, when the dice are flowing, you just get a little crazy with your Saga abilities. So after this combat is said and done, even though he does quite a bit of damage here, I have quite a bit of defense dice. So I kill one of his warriors, and then 4 levy go down. I retreat to the edge of the forest here, and after that combat, he has 2 fatigue with those warriors, so he can either hunker down, do another move, but he decides to pull him back out of the woods. So his warriors are now exhausted, but he actually didn't use the majority of his abilities. I probably wouldn't have had a unit left if he had done that. So basically he used Spill Blood to kind of power up his combat pool and kind of consolidates his line. So that's what it's looking like on my turn. So we've got an exhausted unit behind the woods here. And I don't know. Let's see if I can get something going here. Okay, so my turn. I do not roll a rare, which I would have liked to have had for Strategos, because that's my best attack ability that you can get on the Last Romans board. And even then, it's not super great. So I load up some abilities on the bottom here, and up here I've got four dice in the Hearthguard and Warlord activation pool. Just keeping my options open. I want to make an interesting report, so I'm going in with my Hearthguard here. So due to the forest right here, I kind of have to go in at a side angle and make sure that just a single guy gets in base contact, because in Saga 2nd edition, well, 1st edition too, you got to try to maximize the guys in base contact. And the way that it would work with that forest is to maximize, I'd probably need to get guys into that forest if I wasn't coming at this particular angle. So that's kind of why it looks like that. So by doing that, I'm able to move up without using a die, using the Warlord's We Obey. And then I use a dice to get my Hearthguard in there. And yeah, so on the surface, it looks pretty good. But the issue is he's got the combat bonus loaded up, I think with maybe 5 dice in there, and then the Norse ability. So even though they're exhausted, so what Jeremy does is he pops Norse, and then with the combat bonus, he's able to basically get, I think, six or seven automatic hits against my Hearthguard here. And then he does have the axes. I think I took my armor up by 1, so he got an extra 1 or 2 hits in there. So I used my combat abilities to generate some extra defense dice. And after everything is said and done, I actually got pretty lucky because I did kill all his guys. Obviously, he wasn't going for defense, but he could have actually used his combat pool to boost his armor. Just a really thorny ability to work against, but it is just a one-time ability. But I do just lose 3 Hearthguard models, so worked out better. I think I made 5 or 6 saves. So I put a fatigue on his Warlord, a fatigue on his Hearthguard unit. He did not use my fatigue very wisely, left that on there. Or well, maybe he used 1. Well, no, I think, sorry, I apologize. So there is a second fatigue marker that'll get placed down here. So he left the fatigue on my Hearthguard. One thing to note is his warriors are over 4 inches away from that combat, so they did not get a fatigue. So after seeing that ability in play, I realize now how important it is to get those multiple attacks against Norse-Gaels. So this is kind of like with the Scots in the first edition. Sometimes you can get units with a real killer saga ability, but they can only use that once. So it's really key on making the most of those opportunities to go after them when the board is empty. So I decided to put my Warlord in against these warriors here. So he does not decide to close ranks. Remember, he's counting these as warriors, so it didn't affect things too much. But so I'm going to be hitting him on 4s because we're playing it that way. So it should have been 3s. Probably would have had an extra couple hits. But he's hitting him on 5s. And after we roll the dice, let's see here. He gets 5 hits on my Warlord, and I get 2 hits on the warriors. So sad day. But early combats can have big impact on a game of Saga, as many of you veterans can know. So I do. All right, so here's the aftermath. So I did 2 hits to him. He saved 1, so actually it looks like I killed 2. I didn't save any of those 5 hits, so I was kind of left in a conundrum here. I could have just killed my Warlord, but then my 5 Hearthguard would have been exhausted, basically in the middle of his line, and would have been pounced on and destroyed. So I kind of had to split the difference here. And so I absorbed 1 with my resilience, took a fatigue, and then I had to kill 4 Hearthguard to keep my Warlord alive. And after the combat, my Warlord had 2 fatigue, and the last Hearthguard had 2 fatigue. But I actually had 3 dice left in my Hearthguard Warlord pool. So I was kind of, with those dice, keeping my options open. If I had a good fights without taking much damage, I just would have kept pushing it. But unfortunately, I'm gonna have to use those dice for retreat, and it's kind of works out nice having that boatload of dice here, because even if he cancels my activations, I still have dice to move again. So basically, he has to let me scoot off here. The best play for him is to let both my Hearthguard and my Warlord move back, because he won't be able to stop them because I have the extra dice. And at the end of their moves, though, they're exhausted and they're kind of out of the battle for at least a turn or 2. The Warlord in particular is the only real threat, but I do save the Saga dice, so kind of a bad beat there. Lost on the points the slaughter points. So let's see what we can do after this. One interesting thing though is after clearing out that front line, I do get to use the maneuver ability on my levy to kind of move them up here. So that's kind of something to keep in mind, is you don't have to use the maneuver necessarily at the start of your turn. It has to be the first activation for a unit, but if you clear out some chaff up front, you can use the maneuver later on to get some additional distance into the battle line. And doing some side maneuvers here with my warriors, getting them out of the fray. So this is what our battle line looks like at the end of turn 2. Jeremy up here, rocking some, basically the 3 abilities he's going to use throughout the game: Norse, Clench Fist, and Spill Blood to generate some Saga combat pool dice. Okay, moves up his warriors here and managed to wipe them out handily, putting a fatigue on my warrior archers here. But I think he had to do a double activation to get in there, so they do have 2 fatigue. And on the other side, he kind of moves up his warriors a bit and just leaves all of his combat pool dice on his board once again. So it's kind of a tricky proposition going into my turn here, because don't have a lot of good attack options on the open field stuff. And then his warriors here are a threat to my archers, my Hearthguard, who's stuck there, this small warrior unit. So I'm kind of in a pickle here, and I can't really shoot him out because when he has all those dice in the combat bonus, he can use those to defend against shooting as well. And he's in the forest, and he's saving on 3s. So even though I could load a bunch of shots into him, it's not going to be doing much. So I come up with a little unconventional plan here. So I've got 2 warrior activations, and then I've got Disordering Volley, Superior Tactics, and a couple dice in the combat pool. So the plan I come up with is to rest my warriors, and then I activate them for a charge. So these this is kind of the utility of the warriors with bows versus the levy with bows. So the levy with bows basically can never go into combat. They can't do anything. Where the warriors with bows, their armor sucks on a 3+, obviously, but they get the full attack dice each. And so they can be kind of thorny if you do have the defense dice to support them. So going in, I'm going to use all of my Saga abilities to generate as many defense dice as I can, because I'm not worried about my armor, because we've seen that the Norse ability can use the combat bonus just to generate automatic hits. So I'm expecting him to do that, and that's where most of the damage is going to come from, not the actual dice. So I throw in these warriors, and I do have, I think I get up to 9 defense dice, which is pretty awesome. But one thing I didn't notice about his combat pool was he had 3 rares in there. So he just got a pile. I didn't really look at him anyway. So that's a key distinction if you're going to be playing against the Norse-Gaels. And the Norse ability is up. So he uses the Norse ability, and with this set of combat dice here, he can generate 6 automatic hits and then increase his armor by 3 on top of that. So even though I took his armor down to 2, basically it went back up to 5. So I was hitting him on 5s. He had hitting me on 3s with 6 automatic hits. I had a boatload of defensive dice. So it could have been a lot worse. I lost 5 of the 9, and I don't think I didn't kill a single guy. So unfortunately, that plan completely backfired. I probably should have just pulled my troops back, but this was an opportunity to try to take out that unit and hamper his Saga dice generation. If I killed that unit, I thought I could move my shooters into the forest then and start shooting at his guys out there, but yeah. I guess that was my original plan anyways, that it didn't work out. So this is pretty bad going into his turn, but I do move my warriors over, and hopefully with my protectability, I can keep these warriors alive and long enough to generate some Saga dice on my turn. And this is our battlefield. And that's my lonely Saga ability. And okay, so we've got a bunch of activations from Jeremy up top. He's got the Spill Blood and the Clench Fists and the Superior Tactics, or I'm looking at my board, the Norse ability again, so the abilities he's relied on previously. So using Protect, basically Jeremy's plan was to pounce on my warriors with bows, use Spill Blood to generate some combat pool dice, and then go after my warriors to do a bunch of hits afterwards. So with the Protect ability, I can switch up the order on that. So he has to come into my warriors, and he won't be able to use the Norse ability to the best of his ability because he hasn't used Spill Blood yet. So I actually fight defensively to try and limit the casualties and the overall dice that he's going to get. After that, I do repulse him, so I lose one guy. So blocking on 4s is pretty sweet, and I kill, I think, 3 of his guys. Unfortunately, so that generates 4 combat dice for him, and then he goes into my warriors. My warriors kill him, but it does put a fatigue on my other 2 units here. So they are eliminated, which is good, but he's gotten to my backfield here and done some serious damage to my fatigue. So his guys are just kind of hunkering down up there. My turn, not too much that I can do, or feel that I can do, but I did get a lot of uncommons. So basically, okay, so as far as the photos go, I ran out of batteries on my main camera, so I had to pop out the old cell phone. So these aren't quite the right ratio perspective, but here we go. And basically I got 3 levy activations, so I run across the front of his line with those levy, and I throw javelins 3 times and end up in the forest for the last one. It's not really going to help me that much, but so after 3 volleys, didn't do any damage, so that was kind of a bust. And on his turn, he goes in, wipes out my levy, and even though he does have some fatigue on him, on my turn, I'm not really able to do anything, I feel, so I just pull back with my warriors, rest up some of my troopers, and then on his turn, he decides not to engage. He is ahead in points at this point. So, yeah, that was our battle here. So, couple things here. Very cool abilities for the Norse. I like it a lot better than the challenge stuff. Very cool to see these abilities here. Obviously, the Norse ability, that's really brutal. You kind of have to play around that. So I guess if I was going to play again, I would kind of stay out of the forest, kind of get them to come to me, and try to maximize, get a little bit more of my shooting in. You can see I didn't really get hardly any shots off, even though about half my warband was composed of shooting units. So yeah, that was some kind of bad placement on my part. And I guess it kind of just had the cavalry army mindset in mind, where if I just get in the woods, he won't be able to come in, I'll be able to shoot him out. So if you're playing against infantry, that's just not going to work. They're going to come in, and you have to have a plan for that. So I could have been a little more standoffish, and I guess for this list in particular, mine is kind of tricky in getting those multiple combats. My 2 good, basically I have 3 combat units, the Foot Warriors, the Hearth Guard, and my Warlord. And in my other games, I kind of been using my shooting to weaken the enemy, and then I strike with the Hearth Guard. And on the last Romans board, you don't have a lot of abilities to soup up those guys, so it can't really break through an ability as strong as Norse. So kind of had me on the back foot, and I would love to play another game against Jeremy and see what I could do. It'd be more about getting multiple combats in, and if he had javelin guys, it'd be a little easier, I think, to do some damage to him during my turn as well. So yeah, that was our battle, and I hope you enjoyed it. So as far as the Thursday update that I mentioned at the beginning, I have to say that from here on out, Saga Thursday has been weekly, but it's going to be moving to a monthly release schedule. So this summer, pretty busy. I want to make a bunch of terrain for Saga. I have to make Infinity terrain and some Age of Sigmar terrain for the big tournament that we're running. So this is going to be a summer of terrain, hopefully for me. So to get more time, I have to balance my priorities here. So Saga Thursdays are going to be once a month. It could be more than that, but at least once a month. But I have decided that there will be no more multi-part episodes, which if you're doing a weekly show and you got to get stuff out, and I thought maybe having shorter episodes would be better. After thinking about all that, and I'm not going to be doing those anymore, so it won't be quite as a drop in the amount of Saga you'll be getting, because if we do a battle board review, it's just going to be one long episode, so that kind of counts as 2 weeks in the past. So these multi-part tutorial videos and stuff like that, I won't be doing any more of those. So it's just going to be one video about a subject, and however long it may be is however long it's going to end up. So that's going to be our plan going forward. And like I said, I'll be working on terrain. There may be some terrain videos. I'm not going to commit to anything, but it would be nice to document what I'm up to somehow. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for sticking along for the weekly videos, and going forward with the monthly videos, hopefully I feel I can do a better job. And I think just having the videos be a little longer and have all that info, I think will be better in the long run, just for the viewers and everything. So yeah, that is it for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Share it with a buddy. And yeah, I'm going to catch you guys real soon. Not quite as quick as usual, but we'll be back soon enough. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye. Saga!